Thank you all very much. Let me start with the star because you're all hungry for it. Please welcome Cara Yar Khan. Don't sit yet. Took me a while to get my phone out. Thank you. Please welcome the director of the film, Celia Aniskovich. Thank you, Celia, for being here. And to moderate this conversation, we're honored to have here one of the executive producers of the film, Chelsea Clinton. Thank you, Chelsea.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Oh, goodness. Well, thank you to everyone at the JCC for bringing us together this evening. Thank you to such an enthusiastic audience. Oh, yeah, applaud for yourselves. Yes, absolutely. And really, just extraordinary gratitude to both of these extraordinary women for allowing us at Hidden Light to be a small part of this adventure so far and from here forward. It's really just such an honor. And I wonder, maybe if we could start with both of you, and if you each could reflect on candidly just how did it feel tonight to be in this room, to be with an audience, seeing a story that some of you, or that both of you have worked on for years. And Cara, I know for you, it's really been a decade journey. So how are you feeling?
You go first. Okay. It's always incredible to see this film with a big audience. I think it was intended to be seen on a big screen. There's something very different to watching it in this environment than watching it, say, on a laptop. Hearing you guys gasp, laugh, different things respond, work for different people, I should say. And so it's just really nice to have a team of people sort of cheering Cara on, cheering us on, and also to be in our home city of New York, the greatest city in the world, is really lovely. If you don't mind, I'd like to take one moment. We have a lot of team members in the audience. I'm sorry, I'm going to make you guys stand. We have Sam Pollard, Brenda Robinson, who are executive producers, the Boynton family, who quite literally this film would not exist without you, so please stand. Jade Lewis, our associate producer. Chris Supa did all of the wonderful graphic work in it. And we also have 3 members of the expedition crew with us. Wes, Mike, and Kelly, please stand up so we can give you a big round. Also, I should say you'll see them around, but our incredible PR team, Claren and Patrick, are here, and also Cara's parents are here, who this also couldn't have happened without them. So, thank you.
Cara?
Yeah, Cara wants you to stand up, guys. Come on.
That's my dad. My mom.
Cara, how are you feeling?
I mean, well, I can't look at my friends. My best friends from high school, Patricia Jakulis, Jill Goodrow, and Kathy Caddick, my best friends from college, everyone flew in from Canada. I mean, it is the happiest day of my life.
Celia, I wonder, now that we've kind of felt, hopefully not only talked, but felt how these two amazing women feel about the film and this experience of being with all of you and all of us here this evening. I wonder if we really can talk about the film. I mean, Celia, you start on quite a dramatic, shall we say, note. Is that how you always had intended to begin, or did you have different kind of narrative frames in mind?
Yeah, I think, we talked a lot about what this film was going to be, why we were making the film. Elizabeth, our producer, mentioned before we started a little bit about who the audience for this film was. I think, one of the things Cara and I talked about is I live with 2 disabilities myself, and, so often for, I think, the people with disabilities in this room, you won't be surprised to hear, our stories are often grouped into 2 categories, right? There's sort of trauma porn and inspiration porn is what I like to say about the 2 categories of our stories. And so we knew very quickly people would label this story as a disability film. And we wanted to be very clear that our protagonist happens to live with a disability, but this is an action-adventure film. This is not a disability film. And so, you feel like you're going to fall off a cliff when the film opens, and we like it that way. And so we wanted to sort of grab you right from where it started.
Cara, I know we've talked a little bit about this before, but, as so many people prepare to do something like go down in the Grand Canyon, and I learned today, it's like fewer than 1% of the 6 million people who go down in the Grand Canyon of those who actually visit, which I think I had heard but hadn't really grooved itself into my brain. For many people, there's sort of a plan of preparation. But for you, you actually had to have many plans of preparation, both because you were planning your journey and planning how best to share your journey and your adventure and your kind of action superhero-ness, and also because your body was changing. So can you talk about kind of how you went through just the process of all the different plans that were required to bring you to that moment of almost, and thankfully not actually falling off the cliff, and to this moment here today?
So I came up with the idea in March of 2014, and we did the expedition in April of 2018. So there was 4 years of physical weakening, the progression of the disease. But as you can imagine, whenever you try to plan something grand, things are going to fail. And I would say of every 100 things that happened, 99 of them failed. Not only did we have to, you met Kelsey, who was my therapeutic riding instructor. Thank God she came with me. But we had to constantly change the adaptive equipment we were using as my body changed. We had to think of innovative and safe ways to dismount me from the horse should the horse have stumbled or I potentially fallen off the horse. So rather than going off the cliff, the great idea somehow was to pull me under the horse's belly. The original horses that we had, which are wild Mustangs out of Texas, dropped out 6 weeks before. And thank God for Wes Taylor and his herd and Mike Mulroy, our other wranglers, because he came on board and we had to have a very raw conversation, not only about us and why we wanted to do this, but how weak I physically was. And because he is the incredible human being he took on that challenge and the responsibility. As you said, he held my life in his hand. And for that, I will be forever grateful. We actually never trained for the river. Thank God for Kelly McGrath, our paddle boat captain. And I used a lot of the techniques that I learned in horseback riding to not fall out of the boat and to be in the water. And so thank God for that. But those 3 women in the front that I mentioned their names, and my parents and all my family and friends, and Liz Yelmars, our producer, who did not introduce herself when she was, where is Liz? Where is she? Yeah, that incredible woman helped me get through so much. So for the planning, it was because so much of them, then the trust I had in them and the faith that I had in them, that we were able to pull it off.
Celia, we talked about the beginning of the film. Did you know what the end would be?
Oh God, no. So you've probably heard a couple times today of this. It took 10 years to make this film. It literally took 10 years to make this film. And Cara's been there for all 10. Liz, you've been there for 8. I've been there for 5. So there's, we went into this, and I always like to say every film is a miracle. This one really was. It takes money to make a film. It takes time to make a film. It takes a team to make a film. And so we had, just like on the expedition, many roadblocks to making this film. And I think, one of the things that Cara and I talked a lot about was, so I was not actually on the expedition. So Liz Yelmarsh, our wonderful producer, called me and said, I have this hard drive of footage, many hard drives of footage. Can you take a look? I think you'd really resonate with this person in this story. And I said, yeah, I'm not sure when, but yes, I want to. A week later, COVID hit, and I said, please send him on down. I'm going to sit and watch hours of footage. And so one of the things I found from not being there was, okay, there was so much that I still wanted to ask Cara. And so there's, that interview with her in her house where we did a 9-hour interview nonstop together. And so part of that was figuring out, what was the end of our story going to be? What was the beginning of our story going to be? And one of the things we did really early on was I asked Cara if she wouldn't mind making me a list of sort of all the adjectives she'd use to describe herself going in and all the adjectives to describe herself and kind of the journey as she came out. And that was really helpful for me as a filmmaker to try to figure out, okay, what was the journey of this film for Cara? Where did she get to? And we kept coming back to these words of vulnerability and authenticity over and over. And, I forget who actually says it in the film. Kelly, it might be you, but talks about a pilgrimage. And we came back to that word a lot too. And the real meaning of a pilgrim and a pilgrimage is not the journey they go on, but that they take the lessons they learned on the journey out with them once the pilgrimage ends. And so it felt really appropriate to bookend this film in Cara's home, her, I'd say, favorite city, probably, yes. Yeah. And to sort of, leave it on a place of, yes, triumph and excitement, but also I feel like Cara's journey has just begun. And so we wanted to end in that place as well. And who knows what she's going to do next. She has plans that scare even me. So you haven't seen the last of Cara in the Grand Canyon either.
We certainly will open it up to the audience for questions. I, though, now have to ask, what is next? What other grand adventures are swirling around in your head and your heart, Cara?
Well, Kelly McGrath was actually slept in the Grand Canyon last night. So this morning we were bonding and snuggling, and one of the things I promised myself, I did the whole river. The river is 277 miles. I only did 150.
Only.
Kelly will take me back when all of this fancy movie business is done, and these incredible gentlemen in cowboy hats will be coming with us.
I also, Celia, I'm still kind of stumbling over the fact that you did a 9-hour interview, that kind of both of you had the kind of endurance and fortitude for that. And also that you received, so much raw footage. And so I'm curious, were there any things that you kind of wanted to put into the film and that just didn't kind of fit in the storyline, if you will?
So many things. So many things. I mean, incredible interviews with Cara's parents that are not in the film, whole storylines about Cara's life that are not in the film. And I think, the art of making a short film, and this is a long short film, right? 34 minutes is a pretty long one. And people always say, why didn't you make a feature, a full length, a 90-minute? And I think actually having to cut it down and figure out what was really important to the message was, we wanted to ram our head against a wall a lot of the time, was probably a good exercise for us. But I think, in the end, I don't know, I'm sure you feel differently than me, but from a filmmaking perspective, I felt like the message that we always talked about was there. And so anyone who wants to come to our house and watch all of the scenes that we didn't include, let us know. We'd love to show you.
There's 200 hours of footage, over 200. So also, we've become like sisters. And what did good sisters do? Fight. We have fought a lot, but that's testament to her loyalty and her ambition and dedication to the project. One, to put up with me, and everyone who knows me will know what that's like, but also the commitment to the story and being a woman with a disability and having that kind of representation in film. And this is an adventure film. You're used to seeing something like Free Solo with a white male. Go watch Free Solo, and I challenge you, you'll remember that you felt just as like, in this one as you did that one. So kudos to Celia, because thank you for sticking with me.
It certainly pulsates with action and adventure. And it certainly kind of leaves a very strong impression indeed that there was more to the story, and yet the story is so well captured. And so I think that's an extraordinary feat. Questions in the audience? Yes, in the pink scarf.
Okay, just checking. First of all, Cara, congratulations, and Celia, wonderful job. I'm Sean or Shion Horn. I'm one of the Real Abilities Selection Committee members, and I can tell you, and this may be controversial because people may not know this, we get so many sports, hiking, climbing a mountain, movies that are honestly cliche and often will feel like they need to be a feature and so are far too long. And I hate to say that it can get really boring. What I love about this film is when you cry, I cry. When you swallow water, I feel like I'm swallowing water. You really brought us not just, oh, okay, this is a person or a woman with a disability, overcoming a challenge, but we're there with you. We feel everything, every bead of sweat, your bruise, like all of it. And I just think it's a triumph in that sense. And I did actually have a question, I promise, with that. The question that I had, because as we're watching you, you realize there's social media watching you, there's now cameras, and there's this turning point in the film where you could turn around. And we see how difficult it is. And I want to know from your perspective in that moment, do you think that if you were by yourself, you would have obviously you already had all these dozens of people committed and people following your journey and rooting for you. Do you think that helped you to keep going? Or, yeah, would love to hear more about that.
I probably would have quit the planning. Like, I wouldn't have even got to the Grand Canyon because I found out a week before I left I didn't have breast cancer. Just all the organizing, we had a team, but I'm stubborn. So I was fighting, don't worry, I was fighting with them too. And so it was just one battle after another. If I didn't feel a sense of accountability to everyone else who was involved, crying on my kitchen floor, I would have given up because I was tired. I didn't want to do this anymore. It was hard. But everything great in life that we can do and triumph is hard. When I was injured, that was in the first hour of the first day of 12. We still had to descend another 9 hours, right, West? And it was because of West and the faith in him and his stock. So West and Harlan were in charge of safety. It was ultimately their decision. At the halfway point at 2,300 feet down, what I did not know is they had a discussion about would there be an emergency helicopter evacuation. Thank you for not telling me in that moment. But because the concussion wasn't so serious and this incredible man had so much faith in his stock and Mike did such a great job taking care of the other horses, not just the one, that I could rely on them and trust them. And so we kept going.
Other questions or comments, compliments? Yes, with the black hat.
Wonderful work, everyone. Celia, I have a question for you now making a short documentary. Where do you see, I think there's a real resurgence in the impact that short documentaries can have right now. Where do you, I guess the question is, how do you see the impact for this one going forward and maybe anything else you're working on in this space? Because we're seeing so many great ones, this one included, and there is a real power to this specific format, the short documentary. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Absolutely. I think sometimes the short documentary for the documentary world can be seen as sort of an ugly stepchild, in part because, like, anyone in this audience who's ever made a short documentary, it can be awful. Like, it's really hard to raise money. It's really hard to, convince people. You don't know where it's going to go. Not many people buy them. How do you? But I think there's something really powerful that a short documentary can do that no other length of film can do. First of all, to be able to screen in this way, like, 34 minutes is a really low barrier to entry, right? Like, you might not have time to sign up for a 2-hour film, but you can sit and watch 34 minutes wherever you are. That could be on a plane. It could be on YouTube, where our film is premiering today. And yes. And I should say that was a really conscious choice for us to premiere on YouTube and the most accessible platform with no paywall on International Day of Persons with Disabilities. Cara and I talked a lot about what it would have meant as young girls to see ourselves reflected on screen. And I think it would have made a huge difference, and we didn't. And so, I think, again, the short documentary can reach so many, I think, more people than most films can. And I hope more people put more resources into them, because they really, we've now done festivals where when you have a short, you get programmed with other shorts, so you see other people's short films. And I just think, more and more I've watched, I have someone almost every, and I should tell the crew on the expedition too, I go to festivals and people will say, I did the canyon and I have very specific questions about why you took this route instead of this. And I'm like, I'm not the person, but, and then someone else will come up and say, my daughter just got diagnosed with MS and, this made her feel like she could tackle the world, and nothing we've ever been able to show her has made her feel better. Thank you so much for that. And to hear that, again, I think it's just, this is a long, rambly answer, but I hope we care more about shorts in the future and realize the real sort of impact they can have for so many people. It's also, I just have to say, sitting here and seeing so many different people from so many walks of life in this theater right now is just a testament to that. I would assume most of you actually don't know each other. How you got here, I don't necessarily know, but I'm sure you each took away something a little bit different today, and that's a pretty amazing thing.
Do we have questions further up in the room? Yes, ma'am, there.
We got to pass you a mic for accessibility purposes.
Sorry.
Just pass it down.
Just a couple comments to start. That is, Cara, your inspiration, to your courage, your willingness to grab everything there is in life and not feel sorry for yourself is just amazing. Celia, as the woman from the selection committee said, you really had us stand in Cara's shoes in so many moments, and that was incredible. But I have a question. I don't know if your parents should answer it, if I'm getting too personal, if we should let you answer it. I'm a parent. And my children are in their 30s, and when they go out for the day, and I haven't heard from them or whatever, that's my heart out there. Mm-hmm. And I want to know how your parents got through those 12 days, and if they lived the moments to moments, if you were in touch with them through those moments or not, because I couldn't imagine it. I just couldn't imagine it.
Dad, you should answer this one. While you're handing my dad the mic. So my parents flew in from Shanghai, China, where they were living at the time. First of all, to surprise me at the Grand Canyon. Thank God that surprise got ruined. And I'm Daddy's girl. And so when we got had a last goodbye, I lost it. And I was just crying and I was heartbroken. But I said, you cannot come down. You cannot follow us, to come and check. And especially my mom. She would want to come and make sure I'm okay. And is she cold? And would she, have everything that she needed? So they were there. But how was it for you, Daddy?
I'll keep it very short. Cara's been a crazy girl since she was a kid. She's done whatever she's wanted to do, and nothing has stopped her. I think that just sums it up.
Other questions or comments? Yes, ma'am, in the back.
Hi, Cara. I have a logistical question. How were you strapped to the motorboat?
Oh, so I wasn't strapped to the boat, because if the boat had flipped, which it could have, we would have needed to be able to swim away. So I was deliciously pigeoned between Callie and Deanna, and John was sitting behind me. So it was like, squeeze! And we just all clenched our bums every time we went into the rapid and tried to... as you notice, I don't take my breath in the right spot. So they kept me safe, and somehow, miraculously, we made it through Lava Falls with that bloody flamingo on my head, which now we just have to laugh at the flamingo.
That was an amazing description. Yes, ma'am, with the red scarf.
Amazing. Thank you all so much. I'm curious about your amazing, indefatigable guides, Wes and... Did they walk the whole way?
How your feet feeling? So the descent is 6,000 feet. It's 1 mile that first day. So it was 10 hours, just the descent. We had walked over a mile from the campground, and then we had to get the other campground. And both of these incredible gentlemen were not only Wes taking care of me and Mike taking care of 4 wild Mustangs. They did it all in cowboy boots. And then we crossed it to the other side. Like, we walked across the Grand Canyon to the North Rim. They walked. Everybody hiked it, which to some of the crew, this was who was on the first bit because the boat crew was actually doing the top bit of the river that I have yet to do, but will do. They were bringing all those boats down. We had another boat with a 25-foot crane on it, as well as the motorboat and the paddle boats. But everybody else hiked and walked. I don't know if I told you that in the beginning, that you were going to have to walk it. Sorry. I think initially we all thought that they would be on horseback as well, because we did have, initially there were 6 horses, 1 got sick, we ended up with 5. But when I got to the edge of the Grand Canyon, sitting 8 feet above the ground on a wild Mustang, and realized I had a fear of heights, and then burst into tears, the decision was made that West would lead me. Thank you.
We have time for one more question.
It's quite, if you're going to realize you have a fear of heights, it's quite something for you to be at the Grand Canyon when that happens.
Yes. One final question. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you for this gift of a film. I have a question about the horses, and you and the horses. So they're such intuitive animals, and heightened emotion on this, like your realization of the fear of heights. I was right there with you, although I've known that my whole life. Was there something that you did or said to help control those moments? Like, how did you actually manage that emotion? Because they pick up on it.
So I'll just give a very short answer, but I'd love West to explain a little bit. So for me, I was so terrified I couldn't look down. The only thing, I looked up the whole way down. I focused on the clouds. I tried to control my breathing, and they called out steps. Wes would call out the size of the steps, so massive, mega massive, enormous. And Kelsey would count down how many steps, because that's how we trained for 4 years in therapeutic riding. When you're in a certain position, it's so painful, she'd count down how much longer I had to hold it. She's like a drill sergeant. And so we actually used those techniques in the canyon. But what Wes also, because these are fight or flight animals, the heartbeat. So you could feel, through the thighs, I could feel Sheriff's heartbeat. But it was so much more sophisticated than that, and I would just love Wes to give a quick explanation as to why. He can explain it much better than me.
Well, great question for sure. The horses definitely do resonate and connect with the other beings that they're around. And as you can imagine, maybe a horse feeling Cara's sudden spike of cortisol and adrenaline when she looked over the edge and all of that fear come rushing up. But part of the stock that we brought there for that trip was my stock that I've trained and I've worked with for a number of years. And so I knew that me and the horses would have the foundation connection, and it was based on me. Regardless of what was going on in the surroundings, everything was number one to me and to the horses. And so anything could have happened that day, and the horses would have been just on point, like, we're chill, we're doing our job, we got this, this is what we do.
Those were such great questions, I have to say. And I know you already applauded for yourselves being a great audience, but really you just kind of further proved that you were. And so just again, so grateful to all of you for being here. And I hope that each of you, one person sounds like too small an ambition. I hope you'll at least tell 5 people to watch the film. And I hope that they'll tell 5 people, because clearly we believe this is such a vital story for all of us, and hopefully it gives each of us just a little bit more courage. So,
thank you. I just want to add, this film is part of a movement, and Real Abilities is honored to be a part of that movement. And tell your friends not to be afraid of these films, to go out and see them, and to elevate them. And like this full house here, every house should be filled when seeing this film. Cara, any last words? It is your bat mitzvah.
just thank you for coming. Thank you for being allies. Thank you for being brothers and sisters and non-binary siblings of the community. It takes a movement, and it takes all of us to make change, not only for people with disabilities, but for all of us. So, and when you feel fear, depend on others, ask for help, and just try to find the courage to push through. And thank you, Chelsea, for being here.
Thank you all. It's Giving Tuesday, so please support, and we look forward to seeing you at other Real Abilities events. Thank you so much for being here, and have a good night. There's a reception upstairs in the lobby. Thank you very much.
Yes.